there, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I wanted to make a video on my top 10 tips for doing a full gut home renovation. So I feel qualified because we have been doing a home renovation for 4 years, and that sounds like a long time, and that's because it is a long time. So before I get into the 10 tips, I just want to start off by just giving a little brief summary of our home renovation. We started about 4 years ago, and we decided to do the kitchen before we moved in to the home that we bought, and we were living in our other home. And then we moved in when the kitchen was done, and all we thought we were going to do was update the flooring and then maybe update bathrooms over time. But as we lived in the home, we decided that we had bigger, better plans for the home. And so we basically we have taken the home in stages down to essentially the studs in the entire house. And I'll insert some pictures here while I'm talking about it. And the home it's a 20-year-old home and just out of date. A lot of the things some parts of it were nice, some of it was builder grade, and we just wanted to give the whole house a really modern facelift. And we have concrete floors, we have sliding glass doors on the whole back of the house. We took out a lot of cubbies that were in the house and really outdated shelving. The house had a lot of bulkheads and rounded corners, and we got rid of a lot of the bulkheads in the ceiling to make it one continuous ceiling. We made all the house very right angles, and we've gutted all the bathrooms, and we're still in the middle of a few projects, but we are getting down to the end. So I thought this was a good time to sort of talk about my 10 tips, since I feel overly qualified to talk about what to expect with a full house renovation. My tip number 1 is you need to know your style. You need to know what look you're going for. And the best place for this, I believe, is Pinterest and Instagram. And a third one might be like Parade of Homes or different people's homes that you love and that you've seen in real life, to get ideas of what you like. Because if you don't want to start our home renovation without first narrowing the style. And I don't think we quite knew what kind of style we were going for. I knew more modern, but we've kind of gone even more modern as I've looked at home decor and said, you know what, this is popular, but that's not really what I like. I kind of like this other style. And just research and being honest with yourself what you actually like, and not just going with what's trendy or popular, is my advice. So number 1, know your style. All right, number 2 is make a plan. And this includes knowing your style, which is step number 1. But more specifically with making a plan is knowing which things you need to do first, and which things will need permits, and which things will need HOA approval and things like that. And for instance, we wanted to do concrete floors throughout our entire house, and it's one continuous floor all the way into the showers of the bathrooms. It's the same concrete floor. And in order to do that, we had to make sure we knew where all of our walls were going to be, because we were changing walls, we moved around closets, we cut out corners of different rooms, we changed our master closet. So we needed to know before we laid down the floor, because the concrete floor has to be done at one time, otherwise you'll need to do patching. Generally, you want to know where you're going, to know which direction to go first, which things to do after. So making a plan and having a basic time frame, knowing what a project will entail, so you don't bite off more than you can chew, or you don't get in over your heads. So that's tip number 2. All right, tip number 3 is choose what you love. And this kind of goes back to the first thing I talked about, which was know your style. But with choose what you love is sometimes you see what's popular and you just go with that. And I would urge you to find out what you love and go that direction, because then you'll love your home, and your home should be something that you love. And with that, I would suggest you can't choose most people, based on budget reasons, can't choose the best and the fanciest of every single thing that you're doing. But I would urge you to, if you love that light fixture and it's a little more expensive, go with that one, because ultimately if you don't, you're going to want to change that out. So choose what you love and don't choose what's popular. If what you love is what's popular, then that's fine, but do what you love. And this is especially true with things that are permanent. So I mentioned a light fixture. A light is actually an easy thing to change. So if you were to choose one and then want to replace it later, you could probably do it yourself. You might need an electrician, but that is a pretty simple thing to change. But your flooring will be a lot more difficult to change. Our master bedroom had a tray ceiling and my husband hated it. And he had to rip, it was a mess to tear down. And then we had to have drywallers come, and then we'll have to paint the room again. That's a much more difficult thing to change. But as soon as he did it, he was like, that was the right choice. And it cost a little bit more, but it's easier to do now before we painted, and it's easier to do things the right way the first time. So decide what you love and pay up for it and make it work, because otherwise you might regret it. And that's a tip later on. So choose things that you love. Tip number 4 is probably the hardest one for me and my husband. That has been compromise and learning how to compromise with your significant other. And maybe you're doing your home renovation all on your own. And in that case, you might be lucky because you get to just decide what you love and what you want to do and what your budget will allow for, and go hog wild, have fun. But for other people that have to work with a spouse or a partner, you will need to somehow figure out how to blend the two styles. So for instance, my husband and I like everything the opposite. So that has made home renovating difficult because we've had to find things that both of us love. And for instance, we both loved concrete floors, but we both didn't, but I also love tiles that are a little more ornate and small for like a bathroom, and my husband hates that. So we needed to find something that we both loved. And sometimes there isn't a solution because you both just don't agree. And my best tip for that and that sort of compromise situation is in my marriage, we call it, is it a hope and dream? And a hope and dream is something that you want it more than anything. And you can't choose a hope and dream for every single decision because then that's not fair. But so if you care like a 5 about a project, but your spouse cares like a 10 that it be that one, I would suggest allowing your spouse to have that decision and you having like veto power if it's like crazy. But if you're a little more like, okay, I like that, I can get along with that, then let your spouse have that decision. And then they'll be so happy, and you shouldn't hate it, but that's why you'd have veto power. So that would be my advice. For instance, our next project on the docket is we're replacing our front door. And I really wanted a door, the pinky iron doors that has like a lattice, they're iron, they're black framed. They're sort of an industrial modern, but with a little bit of a traditional look to them because steel doors or iron doors have been around for, centuries at this point. But they've kind of made a trendy comeback and I love them. But my husband wanted to do a really sleek modern door, a pivot door, and with a glass pane. And so it's not kind of similar, but his is just a little bit more on the modern side. And I also like a pivot door. And for him, it was a hope and dream level decision. He only wanted that kind of door. So that was one where I said, okay, I could be perfectly happy with the pivot door. If I was choosing, I may have gone this other direction, but it wasn't one where I also didn't love/like what he was choosing. So that was one where it made sense for me to give him that decision. So that's my tip number 4, compromise. Tip number 5 is projects cost more than you expect them to cost. And maybe this will depend on what region you live in the world. I live in the West Coast in Las Vegas in the United States, and prices here can vary, and depending on which contractor you get, which distributor you get, there's even variance even in my city. But I would say that whatever you're thinking it's going to cost, make it 10 to 20% more, because you don't always consider things like demolition. You don't consider things like okay, so you replace the door, but now by replacing the door, you've now messed up the drywall, and that needs to be patched and fixed and then repainted. So everything just kind of, or it costs this much to ship that item to where you live. So things are always just a little bit more, or maybe a lot more than you expect them to be. For instance, we did sliding glass doors on the entire back of our home. So it's four sets of doors, and we ended up needing to hire an architect to put them in because we changed structure to our home, and we needed to put footings in. And then we needed to have concrete cutters come out. And then we needed to have inspector. I don't think the inspector cost money, maybe a little bit, because we had to file the plans with the city, and that may have been part of the cost. And then it's wrecked our drywall, which we have waited to paint to the very end, which is driving me crazy because we've had 4 years of like drywall patches. And maybe in hindsight, I would have painted different areas and just eaten the cost of painting something twice, but we're already this far, so we're just gonna finish. But just understand that things will cost more. And on that same vein is tip number 6, which projects take longer than you expect. And this can be for various reasons. It could be because your contractor's booked out because he's a really good contractor, so he's not available for 3 months. It could be, for instance, for our project, for our front door, that's our next project. We started this project back in August, and it's now March. So it's taken a long time. And that's because we had to get HOA approval to do it. And then we had to decide on the door. We had to get quotes for the door, and we got multiple quotes. What's interesting too, you'll find, is that even in your same area, we got quoted. I'll just give you rough estimates for the door. I don't want to get too much into pricing because everyone's budget will be different on what you are comfortable spending on a home remodel. But we got one quote for the front door that was over $20,000. And then I thought that seemed, and it's a custom made door, it's a big size door. So I knew it would be high, but I'm like, that sounds really high. And kind of not the prices that I'd seen it should be online. So I went and got another quote, which was more in the $10,000 range. So definitely get more quotes, but that can make your project take longer to have people come out to your house and give you quotes. So we got a quote for the door, and we said, let's go. We signed on the dotted line, and then the door needs to be made, and then it will need to get here, then it will need to be installed. So it's taken almost, it's been about 9 months to get that front door in. You know, just expect things to take a long time. And I always laugh. I love watching HGTV shows. And one thing that comes to mind is like the Property Brothers, different shows. They'll give the family option A, which is 6 weeks and $100,000. And then they'll give the family option B, which is 8 weeks and $80,000. And they'll be like, oh, it's 2 weeks longer. No, even though I love that design more, let's go with the 6 weeks one because then we can get in our house faster. And maybe I'm just jaded because we've been at our home renovation for going on 4 years. So I'm like, what are 2 weeks? Do what you love and what you want, and don't worry about 2 weeks. Or they'll be like, we have a baby coming and it has to be done before the baby gets here. And I mean, I have 4 kids. I get that whole nesting instinct, but I assure you, if your house isn't 100%, the baby is not gonna notice. Like, you can be patient and life will go on even if there's a little bit of construction. So be patient, things will take longer than you expect. Tip number 8, and this is more just a discussion, I guess, rather than a tip, but it's considering how will you pay for the home renovation. And there's various ways to go about this, and I'll just talk about how we decided and then just mention other ways it could be done. So we've chosen we're big fans of Dave Ramsey, and he's big into get out of debt, stay out of debt, and save up for things. So that's sort of the philosophy we've taken with a lot of things in life. And so with that goes our home renovation. So what we do is we save up a big chunk of change and decide, and we budget what we think that project will cost. And then as soon as we have enough money, we pay for the project, and we pay in cash in full. And then we go on to the next thing that we save for. We save for the next project, and then we pay for that one and then get it done, and repeat until we're done. There's pros and cons to this. The con of this method is it's taken us 4 years, and It's just a long time. You have to be patient. But the pro is we haven't gotten in over our heads financially. Another way to do this would be to save up a whole chunk of change, wait a long time, and you probably want somewhere else to live, but get the whole thing done in one fell swoop. That would be ideal, but we needed to move into the home and live inside the construction, which there's only been 2 projects where that's been difficult. One was the sliding doors, because we didn't have it back of our house for like a week. And then the floors were difficult because the floors took a long time to get up what was there already, and then to stain the concrete and to finish it, you couldn't have anything on the whole, so our whole house had to be empty. Every single thing had to be out of the house. So that was a trickier project. The third common way is to, as part of your mortgage, get a home renovation loan and roll that into your mortgage, your monthly mortgage payment, and pay for it that way over time. So you pay for it in your 30-year mortgage or 15-year mortgage. And the benefit of that is the project gets done faster. And sometimes I daydream like, maybe we should have done it that way. We'd be done. But for us, we just didn't want to pay the interest on that loan. And I guess interest rates are really low. I don't know if the construction loans match what mortgage rate loans are. I'm not familiar enough with that. But just consider your options. There's pros and cons to all. So as long as you've worked the numbers and you think you can financially afford it, then that's the way that you go and what you're most comfortable with. Tip number 9 is to know that you will make mistakes. And mistakes in what you choose or mistakes in who you hire to come help. And just expect that there will be mistakes that you make, and don't let it drive you too crazy. So for instance, when my husband and I chose some of the lighting for the home, we chose it back when we finished our kitchen, and we didn't think we were gonna do as much as we've done. And the lights we chose just do not go with the decor. Some I've already taken out, and one over our dining area. They're beautiful, but I don't really love them, and my husband doesn't love them. And then looking back, I'm like, why did we get these? I think I liked them at the time, but I just wasn't sure what my style was, and I wasn't sure what direction we were going with. And now that we kind of have honed in more our style, I'm like, these are not right. And some things, like, you can try to sell light fixtures, but you're not gonna get what you paid for them. So that's something that I just had to accept, that we made the wrong decision, and move on from it, and just cut your losses and move forward. And some things are more difficult, like flooring, if you put that down and you want to rip it all up. So I would urge you, for like big projects, just be very, very sure that that's what you want to do, because those are expensive mistakes to remedy. And sometimes your taste changes. Sometimes how you live in a space is different than what you expected. So you thought that you functioned this way in the space, and you actually don't really. So it's okay to make those mistakes and just have them roll off your back and move forward. Okay, tip number 10 is to consider resale, but don't consider it so much that you sacrifice what you love just to consider resale. If you're buying a home to flip it, that would be a different story. That you might want to choose things that are popular so that you get the most bang for your buck. But if you anticipate on living in the home for a while, choose the things that you love, and have in the back of your mind, on the back burner, will this help me when I'm reselling the house? And we're in Las Vegas, and the housing market is amazing right now. And we've put a lot into our home, but we are still at a point where we would make money or at least break even. But we still are wanting to do like our bathroom still. And I kind of want to do really nice things that are probably overbuilding for my area, that I will not see a return in investment in that. But we are planning to live in this house for a long time. We have no intention of moving or selling. So I figure, why don't we just do what I love? Because otherwise, if I'm here forever and I think, why didn't I do it the right way, the right time? Because no matter what, you're paying for the plumber, you're paying for the electrician, you're paying for the drywallers and the paint. So even if you were to choose cheaper fixtures and cheaper stone and different things, you still had to pay for all those other things. Even if you were doing high end, those cost the same, high end or low end. So you have to just consider the price difference is in the fixtures. oftentimes, or in what stone materials you choose, because the labor is the same cost for high end or low end generally. I mean, if you're really high end, you might hire like the best of the best, but for most people's homes, you're paying the same whether you go all out or do nothing, if you do very little. So consider that. Just consider that you may or may not see your investment when you sell your home, or you might make a ton of money from your investment. So just keep it in your mind what you're kind of going for. And yeah, so that's tip number 10. So I am going to throw in a bonus tip of 11. And this one I'm keeping at the end because it's not specific necessarily to a home renovation remodel, but is contentment. And I think in this day and age of Instagram and keeping up with the Joneses, a lot of times we make decisions based on appearances, and I want to look a certain way. I want my home to be a certain way. And I would urge you that, I mean, I think I fall victim to that a little bit, and I'm a stay-at-home mom who's in my home a lot, and I want my home to be a beautiful place for me and for my family, and we love to have people over and open up our home to others. And so for me, having a beautiful home that's comfortable is an important goal for me, and I want to surround myself with beautiful things in a beautiful home. But I would urge you not to get to the point where nothing is good enough, where the people down the street or that family on Instagram has the most perfect, beautiful, huge mansion, and beating yourself up that you won't have that or can't have that. So I would say be content with the home that you have. And if you want to make changes and tweaks and remodels here and there, that's okay too. You don't need to have millions of dollars and a $300,000 home renovation budget. That it's okay if your home is more simple and modest, and that's okay. But I would recommend making it your home your own and not doing it to impress or please others. So yeah, so my tip number 11 is being content and being grateful for the things that you already have. So I hope you've learned something from this video. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions or comments or tips that you've had remodeling a home, please leave them in the comments. And please consider subscribing to catch more. I'm going to be doing some more videos on home renovation projects, and look forward to seeing my front door video. And I will catch you in my next video. Bye-bye.